You don't want a personal trainer. What you want is a result. You are coming to this video and other videos because after being 50 years old, you hear these conflicting messages about what you should be doing to age better and make your 70s enjoyable rather than being stuck in a nursing home with tons of medical problems. To start off, I'm going to give you these 7 mistakes to avoid for free. My goal here is for you to avoid these 7 mistakes whenever you're trying to pick a personal trainer. Because again, it's not just hiring someone. You really want to make sure you're getting the right person. And so this way you don't lose hundreds of dollars, you pick the right person, and you're happy all around. Now, before I go into the 7 mistakes, if we haven't met, my name is Joe Sidaway. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I help older adults live their best years on their own terms. So let's dive right in. The first mistake that you want to avoid is worrying about price. Because as people say, you do get what you pay for. And the thing is, while obviously you do need to make sure that you're staying within a budget and being financially responsible, but I think that we often forget how much savings can happen in a financial sense whenever we adopt healthy habits. So if having a personal trainer is a crucial part of accountability that's going to get you the results that you want because you just need someone to stand there and tell you, hey, keep going, then please pay the money, get the results that you want, and then you can always stop seeing the personal trainer once you learn a little bit about working out on your own. There's also lots of other cheaper options that you can start to pay for online. There's programs that physical therapists and personal trainers and lots of other people sell. So once you get an in-person experience, then you can go to the online ones and to be able to use their programs to guide your journey. The second mistake kind of builds off of what I just said, which is actually don't assume that in-person means more valuable. So some personal trainers are going to use online means that are very, very helpful. So maybe their check-ins or accountability meetups are going to be online logbooks that you put your workouts in. Some of them are going to use online modules to be able to help you with nutrition. That's good. Just because you're not always talking to the person in person doesn't mean that you're not going to get closer to your goals. Think about things like YouTube. I mean, we go online and we interact and we learn even though we're not with a physical person. There's nothing really different about personal training, let's be honest. It can almost all be taught online, and just a couple of tweaks here and there, a couple of sessions in person, and you'll learn the technique and be just fine. The third thing is you do want them to teach you technique, right? As we just talked about, having a couple in-person visits can be super helpful, but you don't want them to be the ones to teach you that technique alone. What do I mean by that? You want to go to other sources as well. Because frankly, personal trainers are not the guided experts on how to lift the most safely. To be honest, if you're looking at it from that perspective, physical therapists are probably some of the best in the field just based on our training when it comes to safety with lifting. And that's a whole nother video that we could talk about. But for now, I want you to become an educated athlete, someone who is curious, someone who says, this is what my personal trainer said to do. They said to squat this certain way or to bench press this certain way or do whatever exercise. How does that look like and compare to what I see online? And whenever you start going through there and watching their videos, you can compare, practice, do it at a light weight, and you'll see whichever one feels better. And that's the key to it, is you need to get practice. You don't want to give your ability to grow and to get stronger and to exercise. You don't want to give that away to someone else. Take the power upon yourself. You are empowering yourself that you can go and learn this technique just like every other human has from the beginning of time. Practice. Okay, the next thing is to avoid machines and get comfortable with free weights. I'm telling you, machines have a place, but there's oftentimes that we seem to think that machines do exactly what free weights do. Or sometimes we even assume that machines are safer than free weights. And I want to put this out there, is that free weights are going to get you better results when it comes to living a healthier, longer life than what machines can do if you put them side by side and compare them. Now, the reason why is because free weights, you are required to stabilize yourself. You're required to balance with your feet and your legs. And so that means that you're actually working on or improving your balance. However, if you stick with just machines, right, It is doing the isolated muscle movement. You might get a stronger pec muscle, you might get stronger biceps, you might get whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're using those muscles in a functional or a practical way. So let's think about an analogy here. So if I'm a guitar player, right? Or let's do something else. Let's actually say if I'm a dancer. Now, dancers need strong legs, right? And especially if, if we're doing like ballet and you're one of the men and you're picking up girls and these kind of things, you're gonna need strong arms too. But if I go to the gym and the only thing I do is get really strong legs or really strong arms, does that mean I'm gonna become a better dancer? Well, no, dancing's a skill, right? Dancing requires using that muscle. The same thing is true with literally every other movement that we have to do in our day-to-day. So when we look at, say, free weights, like doing a barbell squat on our back, we have to balance ourselves. We have to use our core and balance our spine and hold our shoulders back and do all these things besides just pushing with our thighs, pushing with our legs. So you get way more benefits from free weights than machine weights if you had to choose. Now, as always, I'm going to suggest you do both. Sometimes it's better to use machines, sometimes it's better to use free weights, but don't just stick to machines, please. Okay, the next thing is, I want you to avoid making this mistake, is don't assume that if they are fit or really in shape, that means they're a good coach. That is not true. Let me tell you, when I was in college, there were so many professors who were brilliant in their fields, masters in chemistry and physics and lots of sciences that I took. But some of them, they didn't know how to teach. They had never been taught a lesson on eye contact or explaining what they were thinking. They just put things up on the board and kind of expected you to know it. Versus others who maybe didn't have the same academic prowess as my other associates, they still were amazing teachers. And I, as a student, I learned so much more from them than the quote-unquote experts. So just because someone is really fit and they're able to do the thing really, really well, doesn't make them the best teacher. I put the nail in the coffin. Let's do one more. If you look at professional athletes, right? Those professional athletes are a lot more skilled than their coaches. Like Michael Jordan was a much better basketball player than his coach or any coaches that he worked with, especially as he progressed in his career. But those coaches had a separate set of skills that they could use besides just being good basketball players. So you want to look for someone who's a good teacher. That's very important. Okay. The next thing that we want to avoid is to not let them limit what you can do safely. So getting older and losing more muscle is actually more dangerous for you and for your health than lifting heavy weights. So if you go in and your personal trainer is like, "Ooh, yeah, we don't want to hurt your back," or "Oh, yeah, we really don't want to hurt your shoulders," or "Oh, we really don't want to hurt your knees." If they're constantly worried about you getting hurt, they are not the person you want to be working with. Because honestly, the confidence that you build and the strength that you build from going for, say, very light weights and slowly adding 2.5 to 5 pounds every week, just that alone, like, you're going to become close to bulletproof. And I don't want to over exaggerate, this is a YouTube video, but most people that I see go in the gym and do very little weight training, like 2 times a week, can get massive improvements in how resilient and how strong that they can become. So we want to find a personal trainer who has that same mindset, who has that same mentality, who has seen older adults who have come in and maybe not been in the best shape in their lives, but they're able to come out stronger. That's someone who has experience and understands the human body. Because the people who are the most afraid that the human body is going to break are the people who don't understand how the body works. We adapt to stress and we rise to the level of stress that we put our bodies through. So as long as you do that slow, steady, and give yourself enough recovery time, you can get stronger. And you want a personal trainer who feels the same way. So those are the 7 mistakes. Those are the things that I think you should avoid. Things that if you are finding those faults in a personal trainer, it's time to look for someone else. You don't want to have someone who's afraid that you're going to be turning into a pile of dust. You don't want to have someone who claims that their technique is the only technique and you can never look at any other technique. Just some basic things that you can really arm yourself with and be ready whenever you start working with a personal trainer. I hope that this was helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, have a wonderful day.